A top-tier syndicate Lotna stage his own demise, vanishing into the subterranean shadows beneath Tijuana before crossing the boundary line. Procures a completely fabricated life, complete with phantom government digits, and quietly settles into a $1.2 million luxury fortress in California alongside the Shadow King's daughter. We are peering into the terrifying reality of Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa, universally feared on the streets as El Gaucho, who married into the family of the most terrifying underworld emperor walking the earth, only to ultimately meet a violent and abrupt end when his guard was down. This operative brazenly snatched a pair of elite maritime enforcers and masterminded the movement of 88,000 pounds of illicit crystal poison across the northern border. And when the authorities turned up the temperature, his terrifying father-in-law announced to the world that he had personally erased him. Yet, El Gaucho was very much breathing. He was soaking up the sunny illusion of a West Coast paradise under an assumed alias, right until digital eye-tracking algorithms exposed his hidden existence. What follows is the chilling saga of an underworld prince who evolved into a supreme syndicate confidant, orchestrating a mind-bending disappearing act that almost worked flawlessly. Allow me to unravel the dark threads of this sinister tapestry. El Gaucho was far from a mere foot soldier in the Shadow Empire. He possessed royal blood. This was a young man raised watching his patriarch host extravagant celebrations right inside impenetrable lockdown facilities, who legally bound himself to the single most destructive contraband syndicate operating south of the border, and who, through classified wiretaps, the supreme boss himself declared as one of his absolute most reliable lieutenants. Over a sinister decade spanning from 2014 to 2024, he directed the stealthy passage of 44 tons of crystalline contraband and 2 tons of forbidden white powder into American territory. However, forcefully abducting those 2 maritime operatives back in 2021 was the dark catalyst that completely flipped the script. That reckless gambit to liberate his mother-in-law from her iron cage instantly painted a massive target on his back, leaving him with zero choice but to evaporate into thin air. By evaporating, I mean, the Supreme Boss broadcasted an explicit message to his entire underworld network that he had personally terminated his own daughter's husband. To comprehend the sheer insanity of a 37-year-old syndicate ghost operating under a fabricated persona out of Riverside, California, we must travel back to the sinister origins of his patriarch, the notorious Dono. We are rewinding the clock to the early 2000s deep within the heart of Jalisco. Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa was literally birthed into the upper echelon of underworld aristocracy. His biological creator was José Luis Gutiérrez Valencia, chillingly whispered about in the alleys as Dono, El Ojo di Drio, or simply El Setenta. This patriarch was no common street hustler. Dono was a seasoned contraband trafficker who ascended to the absolute peak of the new generation's Shadow Syndicate during its terrifying inception. Returning to the cold month of January in 2010, tactical units cornered Dono in Puerto Vallarta, clutching an explosive projectile launcher, an AK-47, 3 handguns, 750 packets of fine white dust, and 550 bundles of hard rock poison. As the badge wearers clamped down on him, this man blatantly produced his billfold and attempted to purchase his freedom right then and there for $2,500. Such was the warped reality Christian was raised inside a twisted ecosystem where his father believed paper money could dissolve any iron bars. Yet the rabbit hole plunges even deeper. Dono was vastly more than a mere illicit courier. Back in 2013, while supposedly caged inside the Puente Grande fortress, this mastermind orchestrated one of the most legendary outlaw bashes ever recorded. Imagine a lavish festival unfolding within a high-alert penitentiary, featuring a live, roaring performance by the infamous outlaw musicians, Los Buchones de Culiacán. Leaked visual evidence displays Dono flanked by a heavily armed security detail, while fellow inmates, glamorous guests, and surprisingly, young children celebrated and consumed spirits in his presence. Throughout the recording, the boss glares directly into the lens and declares, "I am the undisputed sovereign of these walls. Whatever your heart desires, simply ask, and I will manifest it." The chief warden of that fortress was swiftly dismissed for permitting such a blatant display of shadow power. Nevertheless, the The chilling spectacle permanently solidified who genuinely held the keys. Now, pay close attention to this next crucial detail. Dono was not merely affiliated with the terrifying syndicate. He was bonded by blood, serving as the direct father-in-law to the Grand Architect himself. Let that sink in. A sister to Christian had united in matrimony with Ruben Oera Gonzalez, feared as El Manito, who stood as the supreme leader's blood heir and the empire's absolute second in charge. Therefore, when Christian eventually exchanged vows with the emperor's daughter Lisha, it cemented an unbreakable, terrifying underworld monarchy. The Gutierrez and Ochoa bloodlines effectively fused into a single monolith. Later, during November 2017, a magistrate permitted Dono to stroll back into society, magically wiping away all his shadowy enterprise and heavy arms indictments. A mere 10 days following his liberation, exactly 10 days, elite maritime forces hunted him down to his sprawling estate dubbed La Esperanza, located deep in Tonala. A ferocious, ballistic exchange erupted, leading to Dono meeting his permanent end on the 4th of December, 2017. Upon sweeping the compound, tactical teams uncovered absolute madness, 6 separate 9mm sidearms, a pair completely bathed in solid gold. The patron saint of lost causes was meticulously carved into the grip of one piece. A second weapon boasted the iconic prancing horse emblem with deeply embossed textures, while a third was heavily crusted with brilliant diamond fragments. Even more insane, the fourth equalizer featured luxury designer patterns etched directly into the sliding mechanism, complemented by a grim reaper skull resting on the handles. Beyond the armory, the estate housed a massive male Bengal beast, an apex predatory eagle, a vibrant yellow-chested toucan, and a trio of exotic military macaws. It was the ultimate manifestation of underworld extravagance, wild jungle predators, golden equalizers, bearing holy insignia. The complete and utterly terrifying package. This was the exact sinister reality Christian was forged within. His patriarch reigned supreme over an ironclad penitentiary, flaunted luxury-branded golden firearms, maintained jungle apex predators as casual companions, and when the federal enforcers finally took him off the board, he fell on a sprawling compound legally owned by a corrections guard. We are looking at an absolutely staggering degree of systemic rot. Christian officially joined the notorious syndicate at the young age of 17 back in 2013, the exact same period his dad was hosting those infamous behind-bars celebrations. Federal dossiers show he stepped up to manage major illicit transport routes by 2014, barely 12 months later. And this was not some low-level street operation. Over a 9-year stretch ending in 2023, this individual directly oversaw the movement and spread of roughly 40,000 kilograms of synthetic crystal product and 2,000 kilos of heavy powder contraband crossing the southern border into American territory. To put that in perspective, that is 88,000 pounds of synthetics and 4,400 pounds of pure powder. Yet, his talents went far beyond merely shifting illicit cargo. He evolved into an absolute master at washing dirty capital. Based on his 2025 confession, he served as a crucial pillar in the syndicate's financial cleanup, employing highly advanced tactics through property deals, fake corporate fronts, alongside massive offshore wire movements. We are dealing with a highly skilled shadow executive here, entirely removed from any petty corner, hustling, in wiretapped conversations among regional underworld commanders. The absolute top boss personally named our guy as one of his most reliable confidants, which is a massive revelation. You have the mastermind behind the most ruthless organization in the country, a figure carrying a $15 million federal price tag, explicitly validating this young operator as elite. Then, at some point during the chaotic blur of 2020 or 2021, Christian sparks up a dark romance with the Supreme Leader's youngest girl, Lisha Michelle Ozaguera Gonzalez. Born in 2001, Lisha held American citizenship. Legal filings suggest she was actively pursuing a higher education degree focused on corporate management and entrepreneurial ventures. However, the specific details of their union definitely set off some alarm bells. Given that Christian hit 37 upon his 2024 capture, and their involvement kicked off no later than 2021. She was merely 19 or 20, whereas he was already 34. That paints a rather unsettling 14 to 15-year generational divide. So, how exactly did their paths cross? Unsurprisingly, their bloodlines were already deeply entangled through underground trade. Christian answered right to the head honcho, rapidly ascending the dark corporate ladder while overseeing mountainous shipments of illegal product. The kingpin clearly placed immense faith in him, enough to permit access to his own flesh and blood. This was no accidental fling. This was a calculated merger between two immensely powerful underworld dynasties, because his sister had previously tied the knot with another high-ranking insider. Christian's new bond with Lisha meant both criminal clans were now inextricably woven together. Secretly obtained snapshots captured the pair enjoying luxury off-road adventures. Meanwhile, detectives discovered the young heiress quietly held multiple real estate deeds across Tijuana. Authorities literally pulled her signature from official commerce archives, linking her directly to upscale residences in the Jardines de Chapultepec zone and Playas de Tijuana, all purchased alongside her mother Rosalinda and sibling Jessica between 1998 and 2009. A decent chunk of these exact estates had already been confiscated by federal prosecutors due to their blatant connections to washed syndicate funds. Life was seemingly perfect for our shadow executive. He was raking in unimaginable wealth from the underground transport game, scrubbing massive illicit profits through clean corporate fronts, enjoying his status as the kingpin's son-in-law, and soaking up the ultimate outlaw fantasy. Then came the chilling events of November 15th, 2021, tearing his entire world apart. On that fateful November 15th, in 2021, armed national forces detained Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia right in the heart of Zapopan. Rosalinda was far more than a kingpin's bride. She operated under the formidable street moniker La Jefa, translating directly to the female boss. Official Defense Ministry statements confirmed she faced severe indictments for heavily orchestrating the dark financial architecture of the organization, and she was no stranger to the system. Having previously been scooped up by tactical units during May of 2018, yet she managed to stroll right out after posting an $82,000 bond, completely bypassing the financial charges due to a supposed lack of hard proof. This recent crackdown, however, was an entirely different beast. They finally had her trapped in a corner. There was zero chance Christian would quietly watch his mother-in-law rot inside a brutal federal cell. Consequently, he engineered one of the most utterly unhinged retaliation plots the underworld had ever witnessed. Merely hours following Rosalinda's highly publicized capture, the power couple reportedly ordered the brazen abduction of two active-duty naval personnel, specifically targeting a male and female service member. Military intelligence broke down the terrifying sequence of events. The two enlisted guards were providing an escort for a high-ranking naval captain at a local supermarket over in Zapopan, Jalisco, while the commanding officer headed indoors to run errands. His armed subordinates remained stationed inside their transport vehicle out in the lot. While he shopped, an assault squad swarmed the perimeter and aggressively snatched both guards. Tactical reports indicated our main operative, Gutierrez, was actually inside that very supermarket overseeing the chaos as the traumatic snatch and grab unfolded outside. The second, the hostages were secured, he and the kingpin's youngest girl vanished from the immediate area without a trace. Their strategy was incredibly reckless, but straightforward, utilized captured government troops as leverage to force an immediate prisoner swap for the female boss. It stood as a glaring, violent provocation aimed right at federal leadership, projecting a chilling warning that the syndicate could snatch state forces from any location at absolutely any moment. Those uniformed personnel vanished into thin air for 4 agonizing days, sending national intelligence into a complete frenzy searching for them. Interestingly, a state representative had previously voiced deep anxieties prior to Rosalinda's takedown, terrified of sparking precisely this kind of savage blowback from the organization. That nightmare scenario had officially become reality by November 19, 2021. Local law enforcement doing their rounds through a Puerto Vallarta district stumbled upon both service members forced to their knees right by the street. Official naval reports confirmed that the woman in uniform had been spared from physical injury. However, her male counterpart endured severe physical punishment from the individuals holding them. Their extortion tactic completely backfired, keeping Rosalinda locked behind bars. State authorities flat-out rejected any bargains with these underworld extremists. Consequently, Christian instantly transformed into a top-tier target for authorities across the entire nation. Snatching active-duty armed forces members is an offense that practically guarantees a massive, relentless manhunt from every single badge-carrying agency out there. Yet, the twist in this dark tale is truly bizarre. A magistrate known as Julio Santa from the 7th District handed down a temporary injunction, essentially shielding Laisha from being taken into custody for any offenses bypassing mandatory holding requirements. Thus, despite detectives firmly believing that the duo jointly masterminded the abduction, she managed to secure an impenetrable legal shield south of the border. The system never prosecuted her for orchestrating that snatch and grab, leaving her partner entirely vulnerable to the impending storm. Law enforcement pressure intensified rapidly, with authorities gunning for him over the unlawful detainment of government agents. With his portrait plastered across every screen and billboard, roaming the country became an impossibility, forcing him to orchestrate a vanishing act immediately. That is exactly when the notorious patriarch intervened, assisting his daughter's husband in executing one of the most legendary ghosting maneuvers the syndicate had ever witnessed. During December 2023, over 2 full years following that high-profile abduction, Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa faded from the map, though his exit was anything but silent. Whispers flooded the criminal underworld, suggesting that the ruthless boss had permanently silenced his own son-in-law as punishment for his deception. An inside informant for federal agents relayed word that Gutierrez Ochoa had completely vanished into thin air. Eliminated by his own family, legal filings indicated that the Supreme Kingpin personally bragged to his inner circle about taking the young man's life over his dishonesty. Consider the dark brilliance of this strategy. One of the most terrifying figures alive deliberately circulates the narrative that he put down his daughter's husband. Honestly, who would possess the courage to challenge that claim? Nobody searches for a ghost, and even American intelligence swallowed the bait, assuming the operative known as El Gato was resting 6 feet under in Jalisco. In reality, Christian's pulse was beating just fine, and he was actively preparing to breach the American border. Investigators theorize he bypassed security by slipping through a highly secretive subterranean route beneath Tijuana, these being the same advanced, hidden corridors that organized syndicates rely on for smuggling illicit cargo and operatives into the states. System records highlight that by September 2023, the fugitive had utilized a fraudulent identity, Luis Miguel Martinez, complete with a stolen social security digit sequence to secure driving privileges in California. He effectively secured an entirely fabricated lifelong before initiating his phantom departure from his homeland. Adding an even more chilling layer to this plot, Laisha had already established her presence on the West Coast. Since her birth year is 2001 and she holds American citizenship, residing legally across the border was a given. Federal justice officials assert that she had set up camp stateside well before her partner staged his own demise, patiently anticipating his arrival. Government prosecutors noted that his grand escape was partially motivated by a desire to reunite with the Kingpin's daughter on American soil. Just visualize the scene. The notorious boss convinces the entire underworld that he eliminated his son-in-law. Meanwhile, the supposedly deceased man sneaks through a pitch-black Tijuana subterranean path clinging to forged travel papers. He materializes under the sunny skies of the Golden State as Luis Miguel Martinez, wielding fabricated state identification, and safely reconnects with his legally residing spouse, right around the exact moment he touched down in the States. A seemingly legitimate agave spirits manufacturer dropped $1.2 million in physical currency on an opulent estate situated in Riverside, just past Los Angeles. Legal prosecutors unmasked this beverage enterprise as nothing more than a sophisticated financial washing machine for the massive syndicate, turning that sprawling property into the couple's new hideaway. From late 2023, stretching into 2024, The pair enjoyed a lavish existence bankrolled entirely by syndicate operations from the comfort of their $1.2 million sanctuary. Compromised private imagery eventually surfaced, capturing the duo enjoying extreme terrain driving out west, masquerading effortlessly as high-net-worth civilians, just an ordinary, affluent pair, soaking up the luxury lifestyle near the coast. However, this ghost wasn't merely keeping his head down to avoid detection. Court records from his own admission reveal he served as a critical gear in the organization's illicit finance washing machine from 2023 directly up to his capture the following year. He utilized highly intricate financial maneuvers, phantom corporations, and property acquisitions, alongside global wire routing to scrub millions in illicit funds, all while operating completely undetected under an assumed persona on American turf. This operative was actually managing massive syndicate affairs deep within the United States, leaving his former associates absolutely convinced he was rotting in a grave. Federal agents are far from naive, and dropping over $1 million in untraceable paper currency through a spirits brand triggered massive alarm bells. Government detectives began scrutinizing the beverage entity, and their relentless digging quickly exposed a sprawling financial shadow game. That critical thread eventually prompted authorities to aim their magnifying glass squarely at the mysterious resident occupying that extravagant riverside compound. By October 2024, American federal agents made their move, triggered by an international alert demanding the immediate capture of Gutierrez Ochoa. Investigators had compiled an absolute mountain of video evidence and tracking data, but their true ace in the hole was far more advanced: biometric scanning technology. The moment analysts fed the face of Luis Miguel Martinez into the database and matched it against the global bulletin for El Gaucho, the algorithm spit out the terrifying truth they had already begun to fear: the two identities belonged to the exact same man. The infamous figure the underworld assumed was sleeping in a shallow grave, supposedly permanently silenced by El Mencho for betrayal, was actually breathing easy in California behind a stolen identity. On November 19th, 2024, precisely 3 years after those two vanished naval personnel were finally recovered, a specialized tactical unit descended upon a sprawling, high-end estate nestled in Riverside, California. They slapped cuffs on 37-year-old Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa, hitting him with heavy allegations of global contraband smuggling and washing dirty syndicate cash. The Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, released a chilling public declaration. She noted that the Jalisco Syndicate, arguably the globe's most ruthless and expansive illicit networking machine, had suffered a massive blow, entirely due to the relentless, obsessive hunt by task force operatives to track down and neutralize a kingpin who had reportedly staged his own demise, hiding behind a ghost profile to dodge the law while soaking up a lavish West Coast lifestyle. Adding fuel to the fire, the head of the Federal Narcotics Division, Ann Milgram, declared, "Dismantling the pair of underworld empires fueling the devastating addiction epidemic across America remains our absolute highest mission objective. Catching Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa brings us dangerously close to the finish line. Just pause and consider how wild that timing actually is." El Mencho was still breathing free air when his son-in-law was dragged away in chains back in November 2024. The very patriarch who orchestrated the phony demise and masterminded the California getaway was still pulling the strings of the infamous CJNG network. However, fast forward to February 2026, and El Mencho himself met a grim end during a clash with armed forces in Tapalpa, Jalisco, permanently shutting down the era of an apex underworld titan. The moment Christian stepped into the heavily guarded federal courtroom, the state attorneys unveiled an absolutely brutal list of accusations. It involved a massive plot to push 5 or more kilograms of premium white powder, alongside over 500 grams of harsh synthetic crystals. Fully aware that this illicit cargo was destined to flood American streets, coupled with a massive scheme to scrub the dirty profits generated by the syndicate's shadow economy, the prosecution completely stripped away his glamorous facade, painting a terrifying picture of the man standing before the judge. They labeled him a lethal, highly conditioned ghost agent, planted deep within U.S. borders to execute the dark desires of the CJNG. The official paperwork was bone-chilling. This syndicate permanently eliminates brutally punishes, and infects everything it touches, solely to pump mind-numbing amounts of narcotics and lab-cooked substances across international lines. This operation exists purely to gorge on wealth, blood money that continuously feeds a never-ending loop of devastation, ripping apart innocent lives and tearing neighborhoods to shreds. Should the gavel drop on every count, Christian was staring down a future where he would never see the outside of a cell. Yet, his legal defense team had been quietly cooking up an alternative, highly calculated game plan. By June 20th, 2025, the man they called El Gaucho faced the magistrate and threw in the towel, formally admitting to a single, sweeping charge of global financial scrubbing. Inside that confession, he fully acknowledged his role as a critical cog in the syndicate's massive dark money cleaning machine, particularly driving the operations from 2023 straight until his capture in 2024. He outlined a dizzying web of deceptive tactics, ghost corporations, shady property deals, and offshore wire dumps, all designed to wash millions in tainted underworld revenue. This strategic surrender effectively capped his worst-case scenario at 20 years behind bars, snatching him back from the absolute abyss of a permanent life sentence. The day of reckoning arrived on December 18th, 2025, with Christian standing tall in a tense District of Columbia courtroom before federal judge Beryl Howell. The gallery was absolutely overflowing with spectators. The stakes were astronomical. It was no longer just his fate on the line, but a booming warning shot aimed at the CJNG and any other shadow empire lurking on American soil. Government attorneys pushed hard, demanding a grueling 14-year stretch inside a maximum security federal facility. Their argument was crystal clear: offering mercy to a phantom agent with his violent pedigree was simply out of the question. They highlighted his direct hand in moving 44 tons of lab crystals and 2 tons of heavy white powder across the border. They even resurrected the chilling incident where 2 naval officers were forcibly snatched from the streets. They relentlessly hammered home the fact that, even while hiding out in a California mansion behind a stolen name, he never stopped spinning the syndicate's dirty cash into clean assets. On the flip side, the defense begged for mercy, asking the court to cap the punishment at just 7 short years. They attempted to paint a portrait of a broken, deeply regretful man who had completely owned up to his shadowy past. Their official filings claimed, Mr. Gutierrez's transformation is absolutely genuine, not just a desperate act for the cameras. It showcases a once wayward youth who is finally crushed by the weight of his sins, desperately hoping to forge a new path built on actual honesty. Given the chance to speak his piece by Judge Howell, the accused rose to his feet, letting an interpreter carry his solemn words. "I carry the burden of my poor choices," he uttered. "The guilt eats at me daily. I swear on my life, I will never wander down this dark path again." Judge Howell, however, was far from convinced by the performance. She locked eyes with him and delivered a chilling remark that sliced straight through the glamorous lies of his underworld existence. "That is an insanely perilous way to earn a paycheck. In fact, it's a terrifying way to even exist." And with that cold truth hanging in the air, the judge finalized his fate: 11 years and 8 months behind federal walls. The state attorneys pushed for a much steeper stay, while his legal team practically begged for leniency, so they met somewhere in the murky middle. Christian is destined to ride out this stretch inside an American maximum security facility. If he actually finishes every single day of that time, he will be staring down his 50th birthday before he ever breathes free air again. But grab a seat, because this next detail is truly mind-bending. Leisha, the daughter of the ultimate boss, never faced a single accusation on American soil. This is despite detectives being absolutely convinced she pulled the strings behind the sudden and forceful vanishing of those 2 military sailors. Even with her actively chilling with Christian inside that $1.2 million estate funded entirely by the syndicate's dirty cash, she simply strolled away without a scratch. Holding that American passport meant she had an ironclad shield of legal protections. From the looks of it, the authorities either lacked the hard proof to lock her down, or they simply tossed her back into the water to focus their scopes on the actual apex predators of the ocean. The Honorable Judge Howell made it chillingly clear during the ruling that this specific four-letter syndicate is far more than a cross-border headache. It is an active, terrifying shadow creeping across American neighborhoods, and her words were practically a prophecy. By the time Christian heard his fate in December 2025, that exact same underworld faction had already been formally labeled a severe international threat group by the administration back in February 2025. Slapping that extreme title on them essentially handed federal hunters a brand new arsenal to dismantle anyone wearing the syndicate's invisible badge. This very same courtroom official, Beryl Howell, had been dropping the hammer on the network's high-ranking lieutenants like clockwork. Fast backward to June 2025, she handed a staggering 30-year stretch to Jose Gonzalez Valencia, the boss's brother-in-law, after he admitted to orchestrating massive illicit trade routes. Just before that, in March 2025, she had sealed the grim fate of the heir apparent, Ruben Ozaguera Gonzalez, the top kingpin's own flesh and blood, giving him a permanent stay behind bars. A jury had nailed him for pushing oceans of prohibited powder and shattered glass, plus wielding loud hardware to protect his shadowy commerce. Piece by piece, the entire Oseguera bloodline was being methodically dismantled and caged by an aggressive American justice machine. The son gets a forever box in the States. Christian, operating under the moniker El Gaucho Gutierrez, gets dealt 11 years and 8 months. The brother-in-law gets sidelined for 30 long ones. And the ultimate twist. In February 2026, the big boss himself was permanently erased by local armed forces out in Talpa, Jalisco. The Dark Kingdom was completely imploding. Yet, Christian's specific saga is a terrifyingly fascinating window into the incredibly sophisticated mechanics of today's illicit underworld. We are not talking about some corner hustler who struck gold. This was a deep-rooted, multi-generational dynasty that wove its dark threads into elite circles and the global shadow economy alike. As a kid, Christian literally watched his old man rule over a supposedly impenetrable fortress, all while being locked inside of it. He witnessed his father host massive blowouts with full orchestras, maintain a personal zoo of wild beasts, and flaunt custom hardware dripping in solid gold and high-fashion emblems. When authorities finally silenced his father for good in 2017, Christian never even blinked at the exit door. Instead, he plunged headfirst into the abyss. By the time he was 17, he was already in active gear in the syndicate's terrifying machine. Fast forward to his mid-20s, and this guy was choreographing the covert movement of staggering tonnages of prohibited inventory across global boundary lines. But he was way beyond just handling boxes. He was conducting absolute masterclasses in financial gymnastics, scrubbing dirty cash through luxury properties, ghost corporations, and complex overseas banking channels. You simply do not pick up this kind of elite expertise hanging around alleyways. This is high-rise boardroom manipulation crossed with ruthless street-level savagery. Yet, it was his inner circle blood ties that truly made him an untouchable ghost. Think about it: when your sister ties the knot with the heir of the most hunted kingpin, and then you wed the boss's daughter. You are no longer just an employee, you are the actual crown. Calling these two bloodlines mere corporate associates would be the understatement of the century. They had merged into a singular, terrifying entity, pulling the strings of arguably the most merciless underground empire walking the planet. That infamous stunt back in November 2021, snatching those two uniformed sailors, painted a perfect picture of the network's terrifying reach and their sheer panic. The audacity to scoop up active-duty personnel right under the sun, straight out of a retail supercenter parking lot in Zapopan. Doing that in the heart of a sprawling, heavily populated metropolis requires military-grade planning, elite intel, and a chilling lack of fear. Yet, it completely reeked of desperation. They sprinted past boundaries that even the darkest rivals avoid, stealing federal boots off the street just to bargain for the boss's wife's freedom. Once that reckless gamble collapsed and they were forced to release the captives, Christian instantly realized he was a ghost haunting his own country. Every single badge, from local patrol to federal tactical teams, had his face glued to their crosshairs. And here is where the top boss proved Christian's worth, orchestrating an absolutely wild, cinematic illusion to convince the world his son-in-law was completely erased. Just let the sheer scale of that sink in. The kingpin had to sell this grim fairy tale so well that even top-tier federal whispers swallowed the bait hook, line, and sinker. He literally had to announce to his own shadowy army that he had personally silenced his own family member, which meant cementing a reputation as a cold-blooded demon willing to butcher his own blood. But he absorbed that dark label without hesitation just to hand Christian a golden ticket out of the fire. The absolute madness that Christian successfully slipped into California, secured a flawless phantom identity, and purchased a sprawling estate via a shell entity, all while living completely under the radar for 12 straight months, is a terrifying testament to how deeply this syndicate's roots are buried in American soil. They possess the underground architecture to forge entirely waterproof new lives from scratch, to acquire multi-million-dollar real estate under the guise of clean commerce, and to wash fortunes at an elite level. And the wildest part, his downfall was not triggered by a rat talking, nor did it end in a blaze of flying lead. It ultimately came down to classic, relentless detective work. Federal agents noticed a liquor brand dropping hard cash on a massive estate, which immediately raised red flags and sparked a massive shadow probe, ultimately using advanced facial scans to link Luis Miguel Martinez to a global fugitive alert for El Gaucho. Digital tracking and tracing the money that is exactly what sealed his fate. Right now, he is sitting behind bars for an 11-year and 8-month stretch in a federal lockup. By the time he walks out, he will be pushing 50 years old, staring down a one-way ticket back to Mexico, where authorities still want him for the forceful abduction of those naval officers. His father-in-law, Eleno, met his ultimate end during a clash with the armed forces in February 2026. Meanwhile, his brother-in-law, El Manito, is locked away for the rest of his natural life. That infamous syndicate has since been officially labeled a premier global threat. The once untouchable underworld empire is now crumbling into dust, piece by piece. Yet, here is the chilling reality that organization has not vanished. Intelligence experts warn that even missing their top bosses, El Mano and El Manito, the syndicate's inner circle might be shattered. But the brutal machine keeps running in the shadows. Rival lieutenants are ruthlessly battling for the throne, a power struggle that guarantees darker days, extreme chaos, and a rising human toll for the everyday citizens trapped in Jalisco, Colima, and across those syndicate territories. The capture of El Gato does absolutely nothing to alter their grim reality. The illicit shipments keep moving northward. The brutal clashes rage on, as fresh enforcers simply step over the fallen to take the place of anyone captured or taken out permanently. Christian's dark saga stands as a haunting warning that the underworld lifestyle, regardless of the millions you stack, your powerful bloodlines, or the genius of your exit strategy, will inevitably drag you down into the abyss. His own father was permanently silenced by special forces right on his personal estate. Enjoying barely 10 days of freedom, his wife's father met a similar grim fate at the hands of the military, and his brother-in-law will rot in a cell forever. Now he is caged as well, watching his best years fade away in a concrete box while his daughter grows up fatherless. That is the true, chilling legacy of El Gato. Just another generation of an illicit dynasty, completely devoured by the exact same ruthless chaos that originally handed them their crown. The nightmare loop just keeps spinning. The story of Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa is not just a tale of crime, it is a powerful reminder of how dangerous choices can shape an entire life. Born into wealth, power, and influence, he had opportunities many people only dream about. Yet, instead of choosing a path of purpose and integrity, he stepped into a world built on fear, deception, and violence. For a while, it looked like that world offered everything: money, luxury homes, powerful connections, and the illusion of control. But the truth eventually caught up with him. No amount of money, power, or clever planning could outrun the consequences of the life he chose. Even staging his own death and hiding behind a false identity could not erase the damage caused by years of illegal activity. In the end, the life that once looked glamorous became a prison literally and figuratively. The The real lesson here is simple but powerful. The path you choose matters more than the power you inherit. True success is not measured by wealth or influence, but by integrity, responsibility, and the positive impact you leave on others. Crime may promise quick rewards, but it always carries a hidden cost. A life built on honesty, education, and hard work may seem slower, but it is the only path that leads to real freedom, peace, and a future worth living.